Our final question comes from, bear with me here, okay? Magdalena Siaganas. Sangas, I apologize. Apologies. How will you ensure a more equitable educational experience for our Black and Brown students in Maryland? Please describe specific policies you will support or enact. And we will start with Mr. Jain.
Again, it's a couple things. Number one, making sure that those impacted by these policies actually have a seat at the table, not only during the budget process, not only after the election, but from day one of our operations. I am the only statewide candidate in the United States whose entire campaign is crowdsourced. Every single policy, every single strategy we have on the campaign is literally written, created, and built by residents from every county, every age, every background, as young as middle schoolers, all the way to those that are retired. And so I think it's, again, number one, making sure that people actually have a seat at the table so that I can actually be held accountable. I'm actually accessible. I'm actually transparent. And we're writing policies that can actually be equitable and pass in a sustainable manner. Number two, it's making sure that, as governor, we're prioritizing the budget. So we invest in more low-income neighborhoods. We're making sure that we have collective bargaining rights for all of our educators. We have, like I mentioned earlier, with reproductive justice, we make sure that we have universal pre-K, that we diversify our educator pool by allowing those with associate degrees in the art of teaching to also take the Praxis 1 and 2 certification exams. I think that will also help encourage more diverse individuals to enter the teaching career. I think that's super important, making sure we're moving away from standardized testing to more performance-based testing. We spoke earlier about SROs and mental health professionals. I would also make sure that we're requiring financial literacy credits in order to graduate high school. So again, we're preparing our students to succeed after they graduate high school. And whether you want to attend a community college, a four-year institution, or a trade school, or go right to the workforce, making sure you have those opportunities. We're expanding scholarship programs. We're making sure that we're expanding work study programs. And we're reducing your cost of living in the workforce by having free public transit, by making sure that you have more disposable income, that you have affordable housing, and you actually have equitable and affordable healthcare. All these issues are specific, are tangible, and need to be done not only in the short term, but the long term as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jain. And we will now go to Mr. Perez.
Civil rights is the unfinished business of America. Civil rights and labor rights have been my life's work. I started my career out at the Department of Justice. I love the name Justice because justice is what we were all about. And I've seen across the country in my work leading the Civil Rights Division, and John's seen similar things in his work in education. We have way too many school systems that are separate and unequal, where the school on one side of the tracks has all these gifted and talented offerings, the school on the other side of the tracks doesn't. And when I think about equity here in Maryland, I think about making sure that zip code never determines destiny. I remember vividly post Freddie Gray, President Obama asked me to lead the federal response to Baltimore. We met at Frederick Douglass High School, and we heard from 4 or 5 students, one of whom said, you know what, I want to be a nurse, but I don't know anyone who's a nurse. Another person said, you know what, I am getting straight A's here, but I don't have the gifted and talented offerings they have at Poly and elsewhere. I'm just as smart as those kids there, but I'm not getting those opportunities. And I met yet another person who said, I have trouble studying at night because I hear gunshots in my neighborhood. Equity in education means we need to address not only what goes on in the school, making sure there are opportunities across every school, not just a select few, to have access to career opportunities. I'm a big fan of the P-Tech model, which is career academies, and we brought that after Freddie Gray here into Baltimore. I'm a big advocate of making sure that everyone living in this state has access to quality, affordable health insurance, and I have a plan to do that. Why is that relevant? Too many kids of color have serious health disparities because we haven't gotten there yet. And so I would redouble our efforts to make a holistic approach to what's happening, not only in the schools, but what's going on around the school.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. It's going to go to Mr. Barron next.
Okay, you've been very fair about the whole process, I should add. So what I would do, so my whole career has been devoted to addressing social and racial inequities in areas like education and wages and poverty. And that's what my campaign is about. Again, we need to do this with smart spending on programs that have actually been tested and shown to work. That would be my top priority. In regard to your question, programs that have been shown to improve outcomes, in particular for students of color and students from disadvantaged backgrounds. I've given examples. Career academies in high poverty schools have been shown extremely effective in increasing long-term earnings for students, 80 to 90% of whom are students of color. I would also expand, and actually I worked closely with the Obama administration to expand KIPP charter schools. These are public charter schools. They are unionized charter schools that have been found extremely effective. They serve populations that are 90% students of color and mostly low income. They've been shown to raise school-wide reading and math achievement by as much as 10 percentile points. And even through work that some of the evaluation, the studies that my philanthropic team funded to improve long-term outcomes, increasing college attendance many years later. That's something we should expand greatly in the state of Maryland. As one last example, many students, particularly students from disadvantaged backgrounds who are good students in high school, they can go to college, but many of them don't go to college because maybe their parents didn't go to college. None of the other students around them are going to college. There's a program called Bottom Line that pairs them with a mentor who advises them on the college application process, how to choose a college they can afford, how to find financial aid. It's been shown to increase long-term bachelor's degree.
Mr. King.
Given me my whole life has been the role that public schools played for me as a kid. Both my parents were educators. They both passed away when I was little. My mom when I was 8, my dad when I was 12. In the period when it was just my dad and me, my dad was struggling with Alzheimer's. As a high school student, I struggled. I actually got kicked out of high school. First U.S. Secretary of Education, been kicked out of high school. The thing that saved me was teachers, public school teachers, a school counselor, folks who believed in me and gave me a second chance. The kinds of opportunities that public schools gave me should be available to every kid in every community. And to do that, we have to tackle our racial equity gaps as a state, and they are present at every level. Black and Latino students are less likely to have access to quality childcare and pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 experiences. We have to close that gap. Black and Latino students are less likely to be in schools with the resources to have safe facilities, science labs, teachers who are well paid. We have to close that gap. Black and Latino students are less likely to have access to advanced placement courses, early college experiences, career and technical education programs that actually prepare you for good 21st century jobs. We have to close those gaps. Black and Latino students in the state are more likely to be suspended from school and more likely to be in schools that don't have the counselors and mental health services that they should. We have to close those gaps. Black and Latino students are less likely to have the opportunity to pursue a well-rounded education with arts and music and rich after school and summer offerings. We have to close those gaps. And as governor, I will be committed at working every day with educators, with families, with communities to close those gaps. And it will take revenue. And we will have to ask the people who make more than $1 million a year and our largest corporations to pay their fair share. So we have the resources to invest in our kids and in our future. That should be the foundation of any governor's mission, to make sure that we are protecting our students. And
Thank you, Mr. King.